On this edition of Southern Newsweek, the Prime Minister announced the dates for when COVID-19 restrictions are being lifted. Southern Ukrainians continuing the action are aided by a local Member of Parliament. And relief for the people of Tonga affected by January's volcanic eruption. Kia ora, good evening, I'm Hannah Wilkins. New Zealand's set to stay in the red light setting for now, but the government is relaxing a number of other requirements as Omicron cases peak across the country. Face masks will still be needed, but larger crowds will be allowed for indoor gatherings from the end of this week, with vaccine passes no longer required from early April.
Changes to the traffic light system and COVID restrictions are on the way. The government has announced the COVID traffic light framework will stay at the red setting for now, but crowd limits are being loosened and vaccine passes are on the way out for most locations.
From 11:59 p.m. Monday, 4 April, vaccine passes will no longer be required to be used as part of the COVID-19 protection framework. There will be some businesses, events or venues who may still wish to use them for their own reasons. And they can if they wish to do so. We will maintain the systems in place and update the passes over time to include boosters.
The Prime Minister says the decision is in line with Auckland and other places reaching peak COVID. Businesses, including hospitality, have welcomed the relaxing of the rules, which will allow more people to enjoy indoor gatherings.
It is the view of our public health officials that we can safely increase these gathering limits indoors to 200 without having a significant impact on our health system and hospitalisations, especially given we'll maintain our seated and separated rules for hospitality.
Jacinda Ardern believes that economically New Zealand was holding up, but admits it's also been bloody hard.
But while we've been successful, it has also been bloody hard.
Most restrictions other than mask-wearing requirements are set to be removed at Orange, which will be reassessed early next month. Dunedin's Octagon is one of the last places in the country still hosting anti-mandate protesters, but a spokeswoman refused to comment to the South Today on what they think of the government's changes. Mandates will be dropped next month for most sectors, except for health and disability, aged care, corrections and border workforces. She told Media Today 1.5 million people have died due to COVID-19 worldwide in the 2 years of the pandemic, and says New Zealand's death rate per capita is among the lowest in the world. There were more than 1,600 new cases in the southern DHB region reported today. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Into the fourth week of the war overseas, and southern members of the Ukraine met in Dunedin's lower Octagon. Dunedin Member of Parliament David Clark showed support from the New Zealand government for the people of Ukraine on Saturday, while a visiting musician from Auckland rekindled his roots singing a Ukrainian folk song.
On Saturday morning, Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern phoned Ukraine's Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal to reiterate New Zealand's strong support for Ukraine and its people, and our nation's unequivocal condemnation of Russia's aggression. In the Octagon, Dunedin MP David Clark spoke on behalf of the New Zealand government.
We're asking that regime to cease the invasion and withdraw and leave Ukraine in a peaceful state.
Olha Vysenko has been a rallying figure over the last month of events in Dunedin. She says there's been much more sadness in the past week, with one of the worst events, the bombing of a theatre, being used as a shelter for about 1,000 women and children.
I think it was a sign for them to bomb it, and inside was probably 1,000 people, mothers, children and other people who lose their houses because of bombing before. And they just bombed that theatre.
Various speakers shared their thoughts, showing their support for the people of Ukraine, including a poet and this young singer who touched the crowd with a version of Hallelujah. Vysenko says while there is sadness, there isn't time to grieve at the moment, as the work is only now just beginning. Towards the end of the event, a young man asked if he could share a song with the gathering. Jessie Sheehan is an Auckland-based music teacher of Ukrainian descent who was passing while in Dunedin with his partner for a Spanish dance competition. He says he felt compelled to share a song his grandmother used to sing to him.
When my grandma and granddad fled, they cut ties because it was too dangerous at that time with the history of the area, fleeing the Soviet Union.
The Ukrainian community plans to gather each Saturday at noon in the Lower Octagon. And Vyasenko says all are welcome to come and show support for the millions of people affected by the Russian invasion. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Mandates and tourism were on the agenda for the nation's leader in Queenstown recently. The Prime Minister was at Coronet Peak announcing planned changes set to affect the tourism sector.
Jacinda Ardern visited Queenstown's Coronet Peak this afternoon to rally local tourism industry players. She says officials are working to remove COVID-19 vaccine passports and narrow the need for vaccine mandates.
Really important that we're here to talk with the business community, our tourism operators, around the support that we can provide as we gear up again.
Ardern and Tourism Minister Stuart Nash are visiting industry players after announcing borders would reopen to tourists from April 12th. The Prime Minister says there is more work they can do on working holiday visas too, while Minister Nash sang the praises of the resort town.
We're working very closely with the Mayor's office and thought leaders across the region to see what that looks like. The government's put a fund together specifically to build resilience outside of tourism, but you just need to look out the windows behind us. This will always be one of the premier tourist destinations in the world.
Today's visit also follows the announcement of the $49 million Tourism Kickstart Fund. In Queenstown, the South Today.
A 20-foot shipping container is being packed in Alexandra filled with supplies for Tonga. The supplies are destined for 2 villages there which have close connections to the Central Otago community.
Loading up a giant shipping container with much needed supplies for villagers in Tonga. Lucy Fukafuka of Alexandra says a collection of food, linen, kitchen utensils, pots and pans and towels will go to help those in need following the devastating volcanic eruption and tsunami in Tonga 2 months ago.
Their homes had been washed away by the waves, so we have been collecting quite a lot, and it's amazing, really amazing, the turnout and things that the community had contributed and donate to our family.
The 20-foot container of relief supplies has been earmarked for the villages of seasonal workers who lived in Central Otago before COVID-19 closed the borders.
We know that some of the boys that came through seasonal workers, and we love to help these families.
Donations have come from schools around Central Otago, along with Lions clubs, churches and individuals. Fukafuka's been overwhelmed by the generosity of locals and says the gifts are an answer to much prayer and fasting.
There is so much love, and there is so much hope and so much faith in each other that we can do this.
The donated items will be shipped from Auckland later this month, with the relief supplies to be distributed via a village committee to help residents rebuild their lives. In Alexandra, the South Today.
Still to come on this edition of Southern Newsweek, police were disappointed with the behaviour of many students during St Patrick's Day events. And a Dunedin gin maker is toasting his success with a new premises and increased capacity. Tēnā koe, welcome back. Only one arrest despite widespread disorder during St Patrick's Day in Dunedin recently. 2 students were injured in falls over the course of the day, with parts of Dunedin North resembling an urban war zone the day after celebrations got out of hand.
A sea of broken glass rests between and beneath the Audis and Beamers in Castle Street North this morning. Litter including a heap of broken glasses on both sides of the street, left over from yesterday's St Patrick's Day shenanigans. Dunedin Police Sergeant Aaron Burgess told RNZ's Checkpoint there were thousands of people walking the streets drinking, which put a strain on police resources.
We're obviously limited with our staffing numbers at the moment too, and Omicron's really affecting our resources as well, and we can't be everywhere at all times. But yeah, there's thousands of students, all dressed in green, all wandering around with alcohol, all intoxicated. Rubbish is everywhere.
Amongst the chaos, 2 people were seriously injured. A 19-year-old fell from a Castle Street roof and was transported to Dunedin Hospital in a serious condition about 2 p.m. And a few hours later, a 22-year-old student was taken to hospital, also in a serious condition after falling from an internal balcony. He was found unconscious with blood coming out of his ears. He's currently in ICU in a serious but stable condition. People seen in the student quarter this morning were noticeably more camera shy than yesterday. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Distilling award-winning gin in the front of a Dunedin bar and cafe has provided a window of opportunity for one local man. Now Julian Delavoye is taking the leap to move his No. 8 distillery to its own, much larger premises.
From humble beginnings at the front of Dunedin's Dog with Two Tails Cafe and Bar, to having one of their products named Best New Zealand Gin at the World Gin Awards. The fledgling No. 8 distillery is now opening its new standalone premises in Hanover Street. Owner Julian Delavoye says the timing was right for the business expansion.
So first increase the production, and after offering a full package to the customer, so coming at the distillery for a tour and tasting, but I can have also a gin and tonic or cocktail with the bar on the mezzanine upstairs.
At this year's World Gin Awards, No. 8 won Best in Country in the Contemporary Style Gin category for its No. 8 Horopito Gin, and also picked up a bronze for its Dunners Gin. The distillery's legacy dates back over 4 generations. Delavoye draws on his French family recipes and extensive hospitality experience, working alongside a teetotal New Zealander with a passion for flavour.
All of my spirit have a native or a plant or herbs or flower is foraged here. Try also to offering, we have in mind coming soon to chocolate and beer pairing with spirit. It can be a different type of workshop.
The move means No. 8 can quadruple production. The business can respond to high volume orders, and Delavoye has a bigger space to work in. A Pledge Me crowdfunding campaign is planned to raise capital for 6 distillation stations and a 5-litre copper pot still. The business also wants to let customers create their own spirits with supervision. Delavoye says the brand is starting to find outlets around the country, with the next goal to try and take their gins to the world stage. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Christchurch City recently hosted the inaugural Street Art Festival, which saw a number of large murals painted on the sides of buildings in the CBD. Among those taking part was graffiti artist Icarus, who's keen to refresh the city's reputation as a street art capital.
Artist Nick Tam is the founder of Christchurch's graffiti art collective, the DTR Crew. Better known as Icarus, he's one of the artists recently completing a series of giant murals in the central city as part of the Street Art Festival. His flawless clean line style and encyclopedic knowledge of graffiti art make him one of the city's most respected artists.
A lot of things now fall under the umbrella of street art, but the style that I do is more like traditional graffiti style, which was sort of born in the late 70s, early 80s, has a lot of like a throwback to America, so there's like a movement on the subway rails over there.
He says he was lucky to get some guidance early on in his career.
I started off 25 odd years ago just as another tagger kid, like running around writing my name on stuff, to be honest, and at that time I actually wasn't very interested in the artistic side of it, and it's taken me like sort of having a few opportunities and the right people around me has sort of got me to these places that like I really never thought I would be.
Icarus says Christchurch became a mecca for taggers and street artists after buildings in the CBD were damaged in the 2011 earthquakes.
Once the city started looking so sort of downtrodden and derelict, those splashes of colours, lady literally was saying today how like one of the first things that pulled her out of like a really bad mental health slump after the earthquakes was walking around the city and just discovering a whole bunch of new art.
And he believes Christchurch still has one of the strongest street art scenes in the Southern Hemisphere, with Icarus planning more colourful works around the city. In Christchurch, the South Today.
Vibrant coloured powder was smeared over people's clothes and faces as part of a Hindu celebration last weekend. Members of the Fiji Indian community in the south celebrate Holi Day, which is one of the most important days on the Hindu calendar.
Daubed with coloured powder, Shinal Dale gathered all her family and several members of Southland's Fijian Indian community in her home in Invercargill on Saturday. They were celebrating Holi, which is an important date on the Hindu calendar.
So it's basically good over evil, so that's why we have to celebrate it with colours.
Capturing the vibrant party that the Hindu community celebrates back home in Fiji, the group visited about 8 homes across Southland.
So we started off from Gore, so we all traveled to Gore, and then we went to about 3 to 4 houses there, and then one stop at Winton, had lunch there, and then we came here, did like about 6 houses here, and then this was the last stop.
While Dale's been living in Southland for 13 years, she says this is the first time she organised a Holi celebration for the community. In Invercargill, the South Today.
Still to come on Southern Newsweek. We meet a special dog with a gift for sniffing out a deadly disease, and a regular book sale returns to Dunedin, but with a difference. Tēnā koe, welcome back. A German Shepherd called Weta is now qualified to detect bowel cancer. She'll be joining another dog called Levi to help with the early detection of the disease.
German Shepherd Weta has just passed her exams. The dog's been training at the Canine Medical Detection Unit in Mosgiel. She passed her tests with a 100% success rate at detecting cancer, and now she'll join experienced worker Levi in using their noses to sniff out the disease.
Both Levi and Weta, now they're both German Shepherds, and they are the only dogs in New Zealand trained for the detection of bowel cancer.
Both dogs have proved very effective at detecting bowel cancer from patients' urine samples, and that's expected to enable earlier treatment and potentially save lives.
When you see the dogs working, they can check 20 samples under 20 seconds with 100% accuracy.
About 1,000 people die in New Zealand from bowel cancer every year, and these dogs are 2 of a number being trained by Canine Medical Detection, which is a Dunedin-based charity dedicated to improving the health of all New Zealanders.
Obviously, all this comes back to finance and funding. We are a charitable trust, and we can only work if we get the funding.
People can donate towards the training and upkeep of the cancer-detecting canines through a Give a Little page. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Bookings are coming in fast for accommodation and attractions following the announcement the border will reopen to Aussies from the 13th of April. And businesses like Campervan rental companies are ready for their return, following confirmation of New Zealand's borders opening to tourists.
Working hard to make it happen. The country's tourism sector is putting in the long hours to make sure that everything is ready for the influx of tourists expected through our borders from April 12. The decision by the government last week to let tourists return to New Zealand has immediately impacted on one international campervan rental agency.
Yeah, we've seen an immediate response to the announcement made last week, and we've seen, I think our travel partners in Europe especially have been waiting for that announcement of the date, and we've seen straight away bookings come in to the point where we had 3 times the number of bookings come in for travel this spring and summer as we did the prior 2 weeks before that, so we're very happy.
He says business has been very tough for the past 2 years. The company parked up and hibernated some of their fleet of vehicles, sold off some to reduce overheads and provide revenue to allow them to modernise their fleet. Now they are rushing to make sure everything is ready to go.
The challenge for us will be staffing and getting staff back on. It's been very hard to maintain a trained, stable workforce over the last couple of years, and so we'll be working on that the next few months to build that up again in time for spring.
Delator says while it takes time for his staff to make sure every one of their campervans are clean and serviced, they still feel very positive for the coming season. In Christchurch, the South Today.
The annual Regent Theatre book sale has been a popular fixture on Dunedin's calendar for about 40 years, raising funds for the Central City venue. Funds raised from the sale of books and other items usually go to specific projects around the theatre, but the need for this year's sale is more grassroots.
A bookworm's paradise. Historically, the annual Regent Theatre book sale opens its doors for a 24-hour period, running from noon to noon, with book lovers jogging down the aisle hunting for the rare finds. However, COVID-19 traffic light restrictions mean things are being done differently this year.
So what we've done is, instead of doing one 24-hour sale where everybody's in with their elbows and we're all jammed together, which would be very bad, we're doing it in a much more sedate manner over a longer period of time. So in actual fact, it will be many more hours than 24 hours. It's just spread out across 10 days.
From ABBA to transport and many more stops in between, Coordinator Alison Cunningham says, as it's always been, that item you're looking for might come out of a box half an hour before the sale ends. So there's no need to push, but persistence pays.
The first books are not necessarily the best books. They come out of the next box, and the treasure you're looking for could come out of the box 10 minutes before the end of the last session. So, don't feel that if you can't get to the early sessions, you've missed out. It just means more books are coming out the whole time.
The Regent Theatre Red Setting book sale begins on April the 1st, running for 10 days. Each time slot is 90 minutes long, with 4 to 5 sessions per day. And organisers say bookings are essential. In Dunedin, the South Today.
And that wraps up this edition of Southern Newsweek. For the latest news and videos from the Southern region, head online to odt.co.nz. And you can follow Channel 39 on YouTube to catch our news bulletins on demand. Nō reira, kia pai te po, ka kite anō.
Public interest journalism funded through New Zealand On Air.